everyone, it's me MB and I'm back with another video, and in today's video I want to show you my new build. It's the build that I've been working on the last couple of days. Although the league is quite dead for me, I wanted to show you something new, and this is what it's all about. Hell yeah, I hope you like it as much as I do. But before I go into detail and show you the skill gems and the gear and the POB and all that, I just want to quickly fly over a map and then after that show you what it's all about. So I'll just start a tier 16 map to showcase, and after that I'll go over the gear, over the path of building, over the actual talent tree, and specific gear choices and why I took them, and what the setup looks like, what is the budget and all that, and are there budget options for this build, because the build that I show you right now is around 35 exalted. The good news is if you just swap out 2 skill gems, it's down to 10 exalted. So without further ado, I'll jump straight into a map and then go over everything. So let's start. So as you can see, the gear or the build itself is strong enough to almost one-tap every pack. You can just quickly fly through the map and will most likely kill everything within seconds. The storm call area is pretty huge, as you can see, and well, if you ask me, there's no skill that actually looks cooler and has a better sound effect, and well, in my opinion the clear speed is pretty good, bossing is okay, but I didn't activate my Wild Righteous Fire on this one. But well, that's pretty much it. That was the map. What you see here is my path of building, and that's the talent tree that I'm currently using. You can see I went to the left side where the Templar starting area is. I went to the PowerCharge right here, some life nodes here, a little bit of spell damage and elemental resistance is here, or elemental damage and elemental resistance is here, a little bit of life here, a little bit of movement speed and cast attack speed here. And I went to the block area right here and included glancing blows. Glancing blows is actually necessary because I wanted to have like 75% of block chance of spell and attack block, and this way I could achieve it. You can see without glancing blows I'm at 40%, so I used it, and I took a lot of spell crit and crit multi right here, crit multi right here, crit multi right here, and crit multi right here, crit and crit multi. I anointed this power charge on my amulet. I took this power charge right here, so I am at 6 power charges. A little bit of life here, a little bit of life and mana here, a little bit of life here, life here, and for the rest just elemental or lightning damage right here and right here. I took the additional golem right here, and I went for block here and here and here and as described here. So this is the reason why I could achieve 75% spell block and attack block. I went for an additional intensify stack right here, and that's pretty much what I did to the tree. As I already said, I will link a POB in the description of this video. You can see I'm currently at 5.6 million Shaper DPS per Storm Call area. This is with Valrach's Fire enabled and Curse on the target with lightning exposure from the Wave of Conviction, and I have currently my flasks enabled. So if you do not enable flasks and do not enable Valrach's Fire but have the conductivity on the target and use the Wave of Conviction with lightning exposure and are at 6 power charges and at 3 frenzy charges, then you have 3.1 million Shaper DPS per Stormcall area. The thing is that those Stormcall areas can actually overlap. They can overlap to 3 or 4, or there can be 3 or 4 overlapping areas on one target. It pretty much depends on how big the hitbox of the target actually is, but I will demonstrate this in game in a second. But if you say you have 3 or 4 overlapping areas and you see a number like 3 million Shaper DPS per Stormcall area, then this number can get huge, especially if you enable everything. If you have your show off Shaper DPS with everything enabled, 5.6 million per Stormcall area, 4 overlapping areas, that's a big number actually. What that exactly means I will show you in a second, but before I show you this I want to quickly go over my ascendancy. It's pretty much all the golem stuff, so I can have 5 golems active. I have Pendulum of Destruction, which is good and bad at the same time. The increased area of effect is pretty bad because the larger the area of effect scaling is, the more the single Stormcall areas move away from each other and the overlapping areas get smaller. So the less area of effect you have, the better for overlapping it is. So, but I will show you this. And the Mastermind of Discord is of course because you will have 2 heralds. The Herald of Thunder is pretty much what you need because you want to have the lightning resistance penetration, and the Herald of Ice is because you want to be able to chill your enemies. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you right here. But before I go back to the game, I will show you how important it is to actually have your golems enabled and active. Without the golems, my damage goes down by a lot. So when I disable all my golems, I'm at 3.8 and not at 5.6, so that's a huge damage loss. So you want to have your golems alive 100% of the time. I can show you how I did this, how I will be able to sustain, or how the golems will actually be able to sustain and live forever, even if you have not much support to the golems itself, so not much minion life and no empower and all that. But I will show you this when I talk over the gear. So let's go back to the game. So I'm back, and now I want to show you what I mean when I say it is possible to have overlapping areas. To do this, to showcase this, I'll actually go and give me a little bit more mana, so I deselect my Wrath Aura and I go over the gear and all the gem setups in a second. I will link a path of building in the description of this video, so if you don't want to watch me forever to talk over my gear and over my skill gems and the choices and why I took this and that and whatever, then you can just feel free, copy the POB. To make it a little bit more visible for you, I will now remove the spell echo, because the spell echo makes it pretty hard to see what I mean with overlapping areas. You can see if I start to cast my first Stormcall, the area is pretty huge, You saw there's not much overlapping, maybe at the sides, and there are only 2 overlapping areas when you go top and left and top and right, and maybe bottom right and bottom left. So this is not too crazy, but you can see this Intensify. Intensify is a support skill gem that actually sums up to a maximum number of stacks. The gem itself has 4 stacks, but I have 1 on the talent tree as well, so it's 5 stacks in total. And what it does is it increases the area damage, so it deals more area damage. It's a more multiplier. It's pretty insane damage per Intensify, and it reduces the area of effect. And this is pretty much the most important note of this, because you can see when I enable my Storm Call, the more stacks of Intensify I get, the closer the single Storm Call areas get together, and they get together to an extent where they are almost overlapping 5 of those. You can see June is my little damage dummy here in the middle. If I go and put my mana flask on, so I can just hammer this skill forever, then you can see that the overlapping area is pretty much at least at 3. So you can at least have 3 or 4 overlapping areas at all the time when you have 5 Intensify stacks up. I maybe made a mistake when I builded this character because I bought an amulet, this one. It was 1 exalted 20 chaos, whatever, so 160 chaos at the current market price. And unfortunately, it's corrupted already because it's a talisman. Someone put area of effect on this, and this is bad because the smaller the area of effect actually is, the closer the storm calls get together and the more overlapping areas there are. So I'm not too sure if this is too big of a deal, but you can see every now and then Pendulum of Destruction kicks in, which actually increases my area of effect for 5 seconds. And if this kicks in, you can see that the overlapping area gets smaller. So the area of effect, the larger the area of effect is, the less overlapping areas you get. So you can see it right now. The Pendulum of Destruction has the area buff. Now the area buff is gone and the area gets smaller again. So if you want to have, let's say 3, 4, yeah, you can pretty much get 4 overlapping areas all the time when you have 5 intensify stacks. So hopefully this wasn't too complicated. I can't really explain it better, but in this particular case it's really important to not scale area of effect at all. The less area of effect you get, the more overlapping areas you have. So this is pretty much what I want to tell you with this 20 minutes explanation. Okay, and now it's time to talk about the gear that I'm currently using, and I start with the cheapest items of them all. It's the Shimmeran. Okay, you all know it. Shimmeran is a elder weapon in Elder Wand that has actually a pretty massive buff whenever you have power charges. It gives you crit multi, it gives you crit chance, it gives you spell block, and it gives you flat lightning damage to spells per power charge. All of this is pretty insane. I have 6 power charges, though the buff is huge. The downside is you get a lightning damage degen per power charge that you currently have. I have 77% lightning resistance right now, so the degen with 6 power charges is around 260 life. So this is not, that's a lot actually. But as I'm playing with golems and I have my body, this Stone Golem, I have a life rack of 460 with the Stone Golem, so I won't even notice that the degen kicks in. So That's no big deal for me. Second cheapest item actually is the Light of the Lunaris. It has the bonus that you get 1% increased critical strike multiplier per 1 chance to block attack damage. You saw it on the PoB. I do have 75% increased block chance, so 75% chance to block attack damage, which means I get 75% crit multi from this shield alone. That's massive. Further, it has cold damage to spells, and this is important for my build as well. I can show you in a second. All other items are pretty much basic items with some cool bonuses. I have the Mark of the Shaper. This one was 45 chaos, or yes, 45 chaos I guess. You get tons of spell damage if your other ring is an Elder ring. This is another Elder ring. I bought the Opal ring as an Elder base and just used essences to craft it like this. The essences that actually give you lightning damage. I have a Hyper Circlet with the absolute necessary helm enchant, which is reduced Storm Call duration. You need this helm to actually be able to use Storm Call, because if you don't use it, your Storm Call just takes forever to spawn. And first when the lightning strikes the floor, then you deal damage, and without the helmet you can simply not use it. So that's mandatory. The -9 to lightning resistance of nearby enemies help a ton. I have +3 to level of socketed minion games because I have almost all my golems in my helmet. For gloves, you just go for gloves that are able to unnerve enemies for 4 seconds. That's a huge damage buff, but other than that you just need life, and maybe cast speed is pretty cool, but the glove enchant is pretty important because I mentioned it earlier. If your golems die, then you die. And if your golems die, then you won't deal as much damage as you would with the golems. So you want to have the minions recover 100% of their life when you focus. So you just activate your focus, it's a 12-second cooldown. And if you do so, your golems heal to 100%. That's pretty cool. For the boots, you want to have as much movement speed as possible, and again a lot of life. Tailwind is pretty cool because it scales all of your action speed by 10% if you have Tailwind, which means you get 10% movement speed, cast speed and attack speed. So Tailwind is pretty crazy, and I get it when I crit, and I crit like all the time. If I have power charges, of course. So that's pretty much my gear. As for the chest, you want to have a chest with chance to gain Frenzy Charge on hit, because Frenzies are really huge damage buff to the build. Other than that, just life resistances, and yeah, go for whatever you want. Belt, pretty much life resistances, maybe armor if you want. You could go for energy shield instead of the armor, but you want to have as much life and as much resistance as possible. My amulet is a talisman, and it has the lightning damage leeched as life mod, which is necessary to sustain life. So this is the reason why I can leech life with a spell. And other than that, this one was a little bit more than 1 exalted, and I just needed to buy it. Although it has the increased area of effect, which, yeah, might not be 100% the best stat that you could have on this, but other than that, this amulet is just insane. So that's pretty much my gear, and now I want to go over the links really quick. So as for my utility setup, you can see I'm using Flame Dash, Steel Skin and Second Wind support. So Flame Dash is up at all the time because you have tons of Flame Dash charges, and I'm using Steel Skin on my left mouse click. So I click my left mouse and just keep it clicked, and then my Steel Skin is up. And you can see Second Wind actually supports my Steel Skin, so my Steel Skin has currently a cooldown of 2.16 seconds and an uptime of 1.5 seconds. So left click and you can see the buff is up at 75% of the time. So that's pretty insane, and the damage is actually, the damage shield is 2200 damage, so that's a big layer of defensive. As for my boots, there goes my Stone Golem, Killing Strike, Feeding Frenzy and Righteous Fire. While Righteous Fire actually, Killing Strike and Feeding Frenzy support my Stone Golem, so the Stone Golem is aggressive and will kill all the bosses that are at 10% or lower instantly. So that's pretty cool. As for the gloves, you can see I'm using Wave of Conviction for the lightning exposure, I'm using Curse on Hit, Conductivity and Arcane Surge. So whenever I use my Wave of Conviction, you can see the buff of Arcane Surge, and the Conductivity will be applied as well. So this is a huge damage buff, and if you have gloves with increased cast speed, that helps a ton. As for my wand, I have Herald of Thunder, Herald of Ice and Wrath. Nothing that I want to explain. And in the helmet, Chaos Golem, an Ice Golem, Lightning Golem and a Flame Golem. You want your Chaos Golem to actually have the plus 5% additional physical reduction. So you want to have an at least level 23 when I remember correct. So that's the reason why it is in the helmet, with a plus 3 to all socketed minion spill as to socketed minions gems. And the damaging setup is Stormcore, which is pretty cheap as a 21-23, it's 15 chaos, with Intensify, Conk Effect, less duration, and Awakened Spell Echo support and Awakened Spell Cascade support. The last two spell support gems are pretty expensive, so they were 25 exalted for both. If you want to go for the budget version, then just go for the Spell Cascade and for the Spell Echo. Won't look as cool as it does when you have both of them, but it's still pretty good. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you about the gems. Okay, and now we have finally reached the end. It was a long build guide, and I took some time to explain everything. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed it, just leave a like and consider subscribing for more content. And until I upload one more or even more videos, let's say see you in the next video. Bye.